want you guys to know that part of my sickness, I realize this, is that I tend to segue. I go from, in my videos, I go from one thing to another, but if you followed me for any length of time, then, you get the gist of what you get the gist of everything I've gone through and what I'm saying and how it all makes me feel. Anyway, before my batteries run out, my mom will be home. This is part 5. It could be part 1. I mean, it's just I'm doing this now when my mom's not home. The other videos I did while lying in bed when my mom was asleep, The quote-unquote short version of this, I know. You don't want to sit on Mama's lap. Here, you sit this way. You can sit this way. Alright, sit this way. I want you to be in the video, but, The short version of this sordid story is that my schizophrenic for half her life mother loves me. Stress that, people. Loves me. Her only child and sole heir. But justifiably fears her half-sister, who was helping my mother with complex legal matters back in the year 2000. My mother trusted her half-sister, implicitly trusted her half-sister, people. The half-sister was helping my mom with all kinds of stuff that's just too complicated. I've mentioned it all in other videos, but my mother trusted her half-sister. My mother would sign without reading, okay? Trusted her half-sister, who was helping her with financial stuff that would make my mother, financially stable, involving an illegal conservator over my mother's rich husband's estate, who was just a big mess. I never got along with Marion, and Marion hated me when I did Alicia's World and got thin and sexy and, believed I could become famous and all that, hated my fucking guts and jealous and whatnot, even though she wouldn't admit it, but anyway, Marion was helping my mom, so I might not like Marion, but I sure as hell, back then when she was helping my mom, out of the goodness of her heart, I thought Marion was doing it out of the goodness of her heart, but I don't believe that anymore, since I found out something years later, but... Okay, my mother would sign without reading any document her half-sister presented for her to sign, and apparently my mother signed a durable, D-U-R-A-B-L-E, P-O-A, the strongest power of attorney that could be created, by the way, back in the year 2000. My mother didn't even find out about the existence of this power of attorney until 7 to 8 years later, 2007 or 2008. I have it written down, I write down everything, but I can't give you the exact date right now. Just suffice to say it was 7 to 8 years later when my hysterical mother called me up and tearfully said to me, who lived 3,000 miles away in Los Angeles. Okay, I lived 3,000 miles away from my mom. My mother called me up and tearfully said to me, who lived 3,000 miles away from my mom, I just found out that Marion has a power of attorney over me. Okay? At the time, I was a bit upset with my half-aunt, who pretty much couldn't stand me, by the way, in regards to her obvious deception. I mean, that's deception. When Marion suddenly says out of the blue to my mom, oh, by the way, Stephanie, I have a power of attorney over you, But, as I just pointed out earlier in this video, I still felt gratitude towards my half-aunt, who had, out of the goodness of her heart, or so I had believed, helped my mother become financially secure. And I assumed that the power of attorney, this is the big thing, I assumed, and my mom probably assumed this too, but my mom didn't really understand any of this any more than I did, okay? I assumed that the power of attorney my aunt had taken out over my mother without my mother's awareness or knowledgeable consent, people, had to simply be the kind of power of attorney that gave my aunt limited power to pay my mother's bills and whatnot, should my mother be locked up in a mental institution and unable to pay her own bills. See, I would have never fathomed the exact details of that power of attorney that my mother had, that my Marion had over my mom, okay? How could I? I would assume, of course I'm going to assume, because my mom sometimes gets thrown into mental hospitals and can't pay her own bills, whatnot. I assumed that it was a power of attorney that gave Marion the power only when my mother was incapacitated. Wouldn't you assume that too? You wouldn't assume that Marion had, my mom had signed without her knowledgeable consent or awareness something that made all my mother's finances and assets Marion's, her half-sisters. Of course you wouldn't assume that if you were me and I was being abused. I mean, I was going through my own shit, okay? Alright, I had also, this is another thing. When Marion just sprung that on my mom, maybe they were doing something else that had to do with this house or whatever, and Marion had to, you know, let it slip out. Oh, by the way, Stephanie, I have a power of attorney over you. But anyway, and ha ha ha, there's nothing you can do about it, but I'm gonna make sure you don't think it's that big of a deal, and I never let you know about it, as Marion's going on in her head, of course. And I hate your daughter, and I'm gonna eventually fuck her over. That's how I feel. But Marion would deny it to Kingdom Come, and my mom wants to believe the best of everybody. So, but anyway, I thought it was a limited thing. I knew what a power of attorney was. Little did I know how wrong I was. I wasn't supposed to ever find out. My mother wasn't supposed to ever find out. As if you watch my other the first three videos in this series, you'll know my mother was not supposed to find out. Okay. The only reason she found out is because her sickness causes her to question things that when she's not quote-unquote sick and all drugged up, she can be manipulated in the brain, okay? Marion can twist things around in her brain. And Marion is so arrogant, she probably thinks that she can do the same to me. But it will never happen, people. I also falsely assumed that the power of attorney my half-aunt had taken out over my mother was a relatively recent document, okay? In 2009, I found out just how wrong I had been in regards to my half-aunt's supposed good intentions, okay? But exactly how I found out is yet another sordid story. I've been legitimately, since a human being whom I do not care for pretty much has the power to fuck me over big time, and no matter how hard I try, I simply can't get my mother to see the truth, okay? I've pretty much been upset about all of this for many years now, but I'm not exactly the most stable individual myself, and I recently got approved for $1,000 a month Social Security and back pay to the tune of nearly $17,000. Equals my mother could fight this power of attorney, but my mother won't fight it, and there's absolutely nothing I can do to change her mind. People, I have tried, believe me. Okay, before I was living here with, I mean, I've tried for years. My mother is far too trusting and gullible, and she simply doesn't get how wrong it was that my half-aunt never made my mother aware of exactly what such a powerful document entailed, not only in regards to my mother's entire existence, but also in regards to me. Okay? You also must know that from 2009 to 2010, my half-aunt got my mother sectioned into various mental hospitals 5 times in an 11-month period. Okay? I have begrudgingly accepted, okay, people? I don't have a choice. Doesn't matter if I have money in the bank, you know, all my lawyer friends out here, whatever, I'm sure they'll say it on Yahoo Answers if they bother to read this long thing that's out on Yahoo Answers. I couldn't put it on Yahoo Answers last night because Yahoo Answers was down, okay? But anyway, most people aren't even going to read it. But anyway, this is the thing. I'm on psych disability. I'm not a pillar of the community. I'm not working and stable and this, that, whatever. So no one's going to care. They're going to just believe that my Marion has my mom's best interest in heart. And as I said in the other video, you know, to me it's a no-brainer that my mother wants everything to go to me, her sole heir, only child. You know, it's a no-brainer that my mom wants everything to go to me and not to her half-sister and her half-sister's family. But look at the world I'm fucking living in, okay? You also must know that from 2009 to 2010, my half-aunt got my mother sectioned into various mental hospitals 5 times in an 11-month period. I have begrudgingly accepted that my mother will never, quote-unquote, make waves. My schizophrenic mother, who's been that way since I was 10, okay, will never, ever, ever fucking make waves with my half-aunt or upset the rest of the family, okay? My mother just wants to be loved, and I wasn't around, you know? and you know, it's just, I wasn't around, and they're here, and they can manipulate her drugged up mind and sick mind and whatever, you know. My mother will never make waves with my half-aunt, who my mother simply chooses to believe the best of, while completely ignoring the fact that her half-sister, who did this all behind my mother's back, my half-aunt, her half-sister, who did this all behind my mother's back, has consistently used manipulation and fear to keep my mother in line. Only because my half-aunt said it was okay, i.e. granted her holy permission, I'm currently living with my mother, and more than pulling my weight financially because I want to, not because my mother would force me to, by the way, in my mother's completely paid for home, that in the event of my mother's passing will supposedly go to me. But you see, the funny thing about that is that just as over 12 years ago, my half-aunt's notary husband drew up that durable power of attorney that my mother supposedly signed in my aunt's kitchen while my aunt's 2 kids witnessed this lovely event that legally made everything of my mother's my half-aunt's. My half-aunt's notary husband also supposedly drew up a will that left everything of my mom's to me. Okay, I'm sorry, honey. Okay? I will never trust my half-aunt, and I will never stop believing that said will was destroyed quite some time ago, people, okay? When I was still living in Los Angeles, I asked my mother, okay, years ago, I asked my mother to at the very least, ask my half-aunt, whom I hated for too many justifiable reasons, to show my mom this will that supposedly still, that supposedly still existed, but my half-aunt, who lives for power and control over everybody, and she hates that she can't control me, by the way, but now she has me right where she wants me, never granted my mother even this simple request. Since I'm on psych disability now and living in my mother's home under my half-aunt's good graces, my half-aunt unfortunately has me right where she's always wanted me. Okay? This is the starred stuff at the end. I mean, most people are not going to read this. I understand that most people are not going to watch this. And even if you do watch it and care about me, there's nothing you can do. Okay? I'm smart enough to know that due to my current life circumstances, I do not have a chance in fucking hell of fighting my half-aunt. Something I had seriously considered doing for many years and was definitely seriously considering doing while I was in the shelter, but it could never happen unless I became, you know, financially stable and whatnot myself and yada yada whatever. Okay? So I'm smart enough to know I don't have a chance in hell of fighting my aunt. Okay? So we're going to keep everything secret. I'm not going to try to fight my aunt in any way. I'm just going to accept what is, but I wanted to know if, at the very least, my willing and competent mother, okay, could take out a new will behind my half-aunt's back. Okay? This is what Hope, Donald's mom, the abuser's mom, always would tell me back when she was my friend, like, have your mom do a will behind Marion's back. You know, I'm sure that will that your aunt supposedly drew up that made everything yours, the kind of will your mom wanted, was ripped up a long time ago, is what she would say to me, okay? And Marion never showed my mom the will. You know, my mom's completely controlled, manipulated. Marion uses intimidation techniques, manipulation techniques, phone, you know, whatever. She uses anything you could think of. Could take out a new will behind my half-aunt's back, or if because of a document my mother did not even know that she had signed, I really am just totally at the complete M-E-R-C-Y capital mercy of this family member of mine, whom neither my mother nor I have any reason to trust at all, seeing as my mentally ill, undeniably frightened mother is not allowed to know anything important about her own finances that include a 401k that my mentally ill, undeniably frightened, and utterly controlled, manipulated by her half-sister mother only has, along with a monthly pension and social security check, because my mother busted her ass at the same company for 20 fucking years. Okay? Now there is the story. Can I do anything about it? No. My mom will not make waves. I cannot do this behind my mother's back. I don't have the life situation, even if I now have money that I could get a lawyer. I don't have the life situation. So all I want to know is, does the fact that this durable power of attorney makes everything that's my mom's, would that preclude my mom from even making a will? to leave everything to me? Or did Marion dot all her I's and cross all her T's to make sure that this house that my mother, as Marion screamed at me in 2009 when she hated my guts, you know, you wouldn't even have an inheritance if it wasn't for me. Oh, and all along, Marion, I and the rest of the family, because you convinced us all, thought you were doing all this for my mom out of the goodness of your heart. No, your plan was to have it. Your plan was for me, the alcoholic loser, to be dead in the ground or whatever, okay? You wouldn't even have an inheritance if it wasn't for me. Doesn't that tell you what goes on in my Marion's head? I have a sinking feeling. And yes, I am going to talk to a lawyer, you know, one of those $30 deals where I can talk for a half hour, but I have a sinking feeling that my mom does not even have the right to, behind Marion's back, make a will out, because this durable power of attorney makes everything of my mother's, Marion's, and my mom will not fight it. She doesn't want to know anything about it. No matter what I say, she gets upset. She thinks, oh, it's, you know, it's fine. I'll just have it. I don't want the family to hate me. I don't want to make waves, and whatnot. Can my mother at least make a will behind my aunt's back, or am I just totally fucking screwed? Because my mother is not allowed, she won't ask, she wouldn't dare ask, she didn't even dare ask, you know, for dental work she needed, or when she asked, Marion was like, that's too expensive, why don't you just have your teeth pulled out? Or Marion insisted my mother had to have her teeth pulled out. My mom didn't want to do that, so my mom was going to slowly save up the money. And meanwhile, her teeth were getting more rotten. I'm like, Mom, what would you have done if you'd never got this $10,000 that you just got less than a month ago? You just got it this month. She would have continued slowly, because that is how she has to live. Marion tells her she has no money, but guess what? Even if she has no money, she has a nest egg. She has a 401k. She can get $50,000. It was worth. I don't. It could be worth more or less now, but it was worth $50,000. The fact is, it might not even exist. Marion, my mom just trusts her half-sister. Do you understand? Marion could have already been dipping into this 401k. Do you understand that? My mom would never know. My mom would just believes Marion's not doing it. There's no checks and balances on Marion whatsoever. This document was not even through the courts. It was supposedly, if it was signed, it was when my mother was in Marion's kitchen in 2000. The two kids signed it as witnesses. I have it in my suitcase there. Am I going to see a lawyer? Sure. But it's just, I don't have, you know, what's the point? My mom won't fight it. There's nothing that I can do. There's nothing that I can do. I don't even know if my mom can at least make out a fucking will behind Marion's back. My mom was willing to do anything that's secret. She'll make another will. Even when I was in LA, she would have done it. She just couldn't figure out how. But I'm here now. My mom will go with me. We'll make out another will, but I don't even know if my mom can do that under the circumstances. I really don't. I really don't. I want to know. I'm going to see a lawyer, but you see, I know anybody smart watching this can see. You see how smart I am. You see I cover all bases. I've been talking about this for years. I never wanted to see my aunt again. I'm grateful to be in my mom's home, but Marion's the one who decided it, and Marion could undecide it if, you know, for whatever reason. If I make waves, if she catches wind that I'm making waves, if she catches wind of this, whatever, she could undecide it and I'd be out. I won't be on the street, not with $14,000 in the bank. And my mom won't be happy, but my mom is controlled. My mom doesn't want me to leave, but if push came to shove, my mom's terrified of being thrown back in that mental hospital. And that's the bottom line. Here, people. The bottom line. I'm not powerful enough. I just want to know if my mom can make a will behind my aunt's back. My mom's willing to do anything that Marion won't know about. That's all. That's all I want to know. That's it. I said, you keep your friends close and your enemies closer. I'm pretending everything's fine with Marion. She hugged me, I hugged her back. And more importantly, I wrote her the letter. You know, She just thinks I'm accepting it. Of course I'm not. I'd be a fool. She probably thinks I'm a fool. Other things she screamed at me in 2009. You're nuttier than a fruitcake. You're more mentally ill than your mother. Anything you could think of. But now she's like, can we just forget we were ever mean to each other? Let's just forget we were ever mean to each other, like we were little kids on the playground who knocked each other down or something. I really have to laugh at the arrogance of that woman, but she's powerful. As my mother will periodically point out to me, Marion told me she's not after my estate. She doesn't need my money, Laura. She has plenty of her own. She has 2 houses. She has houses and cars and buses and condos and goes on vacation all the time and whatnot. Sure. That's why it's so easy for her to convince my entire family that, especially since I'm the one who got money from my mom. You know, it's so easy for Marion to just convince them all she's protecting my mom from me. She only has my mom's best interest at heart. Why would she be after my mom's money? She has plenty of her own. She only did this for her half-sister out of love. I've heard it all before, people. You know, I can read thousands upon thousands of cases on the internet. I've accepted that there's nothing I can do about any of this, okay? I just want to know if my mother can make out a will behind my aunt's back, despite the fact that my aunt has adorable power of attorney over my mother. That's it. That's what I want to know. My mother will not fight anything. She's terrified. And I don't know what that's like. She won't admit it, of course, but I know it. Even her friend knows it. Back when her friend was my friend for a while, she's like, you better be careful with Mary. Mary's powerful, and your mother's terrified of going back in the mental hospital. I'm sure my mom discusses things with someone else who's been locked up and knows what it's like that she's not going to discuss with me, you know? I don't care. I'm calling a spade a spade. That's a saying, right? We gotta call a spade a spade. I hope it's not a derogatory saying. If it is, I apologize. I don't usually use that, but you know, it's the truth. My mother won't ever fight this. She will not. There's nothing that I can do in my current situation. But I have a right to protect my own inheritance from this woman who my mother knows nothing about her own finances. And my mother's capable of knowing about them. Marion gets all the bills. My mom is not allowed to know anything about her credit cards or her finances or 401k or anything like that. Nothing. For all we know, Marion took that 401k money and used it, or we don't know. You never know what secrets are going on with people. I mean, that man bludgeoned this happened a while back, but he bludgeoned his wife of however many years. He had 4 kids. And for a month, he pretended to be so concerned and searching for her and crying. And what about my children? All that. Now, the time he had killed her and her body was down in their basement. You don't know about people. My mom's too trusting. My mom gave me a lot of money, but I wasn't putting it up my nose, okay? You don't know who Marion is. She was with a really bad guy for a while, and she fucked over people, and she admittedly did coke for 8 years. She was addicted to coke. I was never any kind of drug addict. I had a letter where she admitted I'd had it kept for 20 years, but when I went through all this shit in the shelter, whatever, I lost stuff, and I believe that letter's gone forever. And that's the way it goes, okay? There's nothing that I can do about this. That was a long time ago. Marion's remarried. She's a pillar of the community. She's this, that, and everything. And she has everyone convinced that she does everything in my mother's best interest. And that's it. That's it, people. That's it. And sure, I'm grateful to be here. How can I not be? It's like someone being in prison and being out, you know. I'm not in the shelter anymore. I'm with my dog. I have a substantial amount of money in the bank, more money than I've ever had in my life. The most I've ever had in the bank at a time is maybe a couple thousand. Now I have 14. And I have a steady income of $1,000 a month. And I'm sure if I ever put my mind to it, I can make some extra money writing on the internet, you know. But I have a right to protect my own inheritance. My schizophrenic, mentally ill mother doesn't have the mental capacity to understand any of this. She gets mad at me when I try to tell her so. But she is willing to at least, you know, entertain the idea. I know she'll do it as long as I'm here and I hold her hand and we go. She'll make a will behind Marion's back. Marion never showed her the will that I asked years ago. I said, please just have Marion show you the will. My mom wouldn't even understand what she was seeing anyway. Marion could just throw the will in front of her. We'd at least know it wasn't ripped up. But you get it? It's not right, any of this. It's not right. My entire family just believes Marion and thinks I'm a nutcase. You know, they know that I believe Chad Kruger loved me, and that's crazy. And they're, you know, of course it's crazy. It's crazy in my eyes too. Although I never would have believed such a thing if I hadn't done Alicia's World. So it is crazy. But Chad Kruger could have seen me dance and strip. I was seen across the world. People from other countries were praising me in different languages. You know. I was popular. Chad Kruger wasn't famous then. Even famous people now and go out on Twitter and do this, that, whatever. I see them on TV. They admit they go out on Twitter and, you know, so internet makes it a different world. Even famous people do stuff. Chad Kruger could have seen me in Alicia's World. But for me to start believing that he's been following me for all these years and had fallen in love with me all those years ago and was rooting for me and told his friends about me and knew all about how Donald had been abusing me and yada whatever, that was craziness. It all fell into place, though. You just have no idea how it all fell into place. You just can't even imagine. I've documented it out on ALICIACREATURE, ALICIACREATURE, if you want to know. I documented it repeatedly out on ALICIACREATURE, Alicia Roll 1, ALICIAAROL 1, the number 1, all one word. My other 2 channels, I documented, I talked about it. This is back when I really believed it, but I said why I believed it. Every little thing you could possibly think of that, you know, people who don't, you know, could chalk up as coincidence, I took as the truth. Even after I received that Facebook message from Chad Kruger's girlfriend at the time. You know, Kristen Adams, she sent me a Facebook message telling me that there's no way that Nickelback went to Spotlight Bar on the night that I was there and this, that, whatever. And, but I found out only after the fact that, it all fit in my head because I found out that 2009, which was May, shortly before I came to visit my mom and then entered my 2009 Summer of Hell, Nickelback was not on tour then, which means it was possible that they had stopped in at Spotlight Bar. Not plausible, but possible because they weren't on tour. This Spotlight Bar was in Hollywood. It wasn't in Oklahoma or Minnesota or Timbuktu, you know. And stars go to bars. Stars do that, so they could have. My mom.